Hi everyone, and welcome to our series on engaging students with classroom response systems. In this presentation, we will introduce you to how to generate whole class discussion using classroom response systems. The information provided in this presentation and the following presentations in this series comes from the book Teaching with Classroom Response Systems, Creating Active Learning Environments by Derek Ruff. Classroom response systems are known by many names, including student response systems, audience response systems, personal response systems, and electronic voting systems. Studies have shown using classroom response systems often increase student attendance, student participation, and overall student enjoyment of the class. What I really love about using these systems is that it provides me, as the instructor and the student, practical feedback on student learning. There are many types of classroom response systems that are being used at Nichols State, such as iClicker, Kahoot, Mentimeter, and Socrative. The impact on student learning is less about which student response system you use and more about instructional methods that are utilized. Therefore, today we are going to discuss generating class-wide discussions using these student response systems. To generate class-wide discussions, you can use the Think, Vote, Share method. It's a play on the Think, Pair, Share method. In this case, the instructor will pose a multiple choice question to the class. Students then think about the question and submit their answer through the student response system. The instructor then displays bar graphs or charts showing the results of the class, and then the instructor facilitates discussions around those results. So why might you use clickers for class-wide discussion? Something that I really like about clickers is that it provides students a level of anonymity that can encourage participation. So if a student doesn't have to speak up in class, but can click a button, they're more likely to answer that question. It also gives all students the opportunity to respond to the question independently, which gives you as an instructor and the student a better idea of where they are at in learning the various concepts that you're presenting. And it also provides an opportunity for students to hear each other describe and grapple with course content. And sometimes when they hear their students describing their ideas around the content, it helps them better understand that content. So how will you use this to facilitate whole class discussion? Well, one way you can do that is have students share the reasoning behind their answer on the clicker question. Students may be able to understand a peer's explanation more quickly than they might understand yours. And it also provides you with how your students are thinking about the material. But what if no one volunteers to defend or explain a particular answer choice? In this case, which is quite common, particularly early on in the semester when you're using these clickers, you may want to suggest possible explanations for students' reasoning behind the answers and see which of those reasonings your students may agree with or support. You could also ask students to hypothesize why someone might find an answer choice reasonable. I really love this idea because then no one has to specifically defend their own answer, but then they can start to think about why students might have chosen the same answer they did or another answer. And then please spend time on why someone might choose the incorrect or unpopular answer. It's always important for students to understand what is the correct answer, but it's also important for them to understand why the other answer choices are not the best answer to your question. I would also encourage students to respond to and challenge other comments. Provide space for debate, which may lead to deeper meaning of the concept that you are presenting. I also like that this could lead to some awesome discussion boards. So if you're teaching in a hybrid or high flex environment, you could start the class discussion in class using these clicker questions and then move it to your weekly discussion board where students would have more time to back up their answers and find resources to support their answer as well. Also, provide space for students to make the important points. I am guilty of this. Don't give away the good stuff. Consider yourself a facilitator of learning rather than giving away the key points. Students gain a deeper understanding of material by discovering the key points themselves. Think about a time or a major moment in learning that you have had. Those usually occur when you had to make the discovery yourself or put the key concepts together in a way that makes sense to you. One way you can ensure you do not stifle classroom discussion, but rather guide it, is not to provide the correct answer right away. Instead, you could ask them leading questions, you could ask them to explain themselves more, but to ensure that your students do understand the key points of the class discussion, I do recommend that you provide a wrap-up or a summary with key points that you want students to take away from the discussion. Another way to continue facilitating whole class discussion is to repeat student responses in the discussion. Actively listen in on the class discussion. With technology differences over Zoom, key points that students are making might need to be repeated. This also allows you to create a pause in discussion to create emphasis on that point. So for example, if my student makes a terrific point or is getting really close to putting a couple concepts together, I like to stop the class and repeat what that student say and be very encouraging. Say, wow, that's a really interesting point. Can anyone else think of other ways to say that? Or can anyone else apply the vocabulary we learned for this course to that point to really bring it all together? And sometimes, unfortunately, due to technology differences and internet connections, it's just really hard to hear each other's responses. And therefore, repeating student responses in the discussion encourages whole class discussion by allowing everyone to hear the responses. So to wrap up this short presentation on using student response systems to facilitate whole class discussion, when considering using student response systems, focus more on how you will use the technology. Then choose the appropriate technology. I would consider using technology that's already used by colleagues in the same department and facilitate whole class discussion using the Think, Vote, Share. Thank you all for listening. If you are interested in learning more about how to use whole class discussion using student response systems, please check out the Teaching with Classroom Response Systems by Derek Bruff, which can be found through the Nichols State Center for Teaching Excellence, as well as on his Vanderbilt website.